Let me tell you a story, a real one. And let me warn you, it kicks off fast. The day I bought those 58 acres just outside Willowbrook, I was just a divorced guy looking to rebuild. I had no idea that signing those closing papers would end up signing the death warrant for the HOA tyrant who'd been running the show for over a decade. 3 weeks after I moved in, her true colors showed up along with the Channel 7 news van when Karen Peaton rolled up to my new gate bolt cutters in hand, screaming bloody murder on live TV, hell-bent on making a scene. And let me tell you, steel shrieks louder when you got an audience. You'd have thought I had blocked off the only road to the promised land, the way she carried on yelling about community access and how I'd regret this as if she was the sheriff and I was some outlaw. What Karen didn't realize was that this unremarkable patch of farmland was the one thing holding her whole little kingdom together. And with that gate on camera, she set off a domino line of chaos that unraveled everything she'd built out of stolen money, threats, and broken families. I'll say this, by the time I was finished, Karen learned all about regret. So where are you listening from tonight? Drop it in the comments, because this revenge story is about to get wild. Let me back up a second. 6 months before all that, I was Marcus Bellamy, 45. A mechanical engineer freshly divorced, wanting nothing but a quiet place to heal and maybe wrench on old motorcycles. Willowbrook looked like heaven, tall pines, honest earth, a modest house with room for a shop. The realtor mentioned the wonderful HOA. I barely paid attention. I just wanted peace. Then there was Karen, 52, bulletproof blonde bob pastel cardigans, the kind of smile that made you feel like you'd better stay on her good side. She ran the HOA unopposed for 12 straight years. Her house was this faux colonial monstrosity, columns, pristine hedges, and a Lexus that sparkled like a threat in the driveway. Her husband was always traveling, so Karen spent her time doing what she loved, tormenting the neighborhood. My crash course in her ways came fast. 3 weeks in, I built a small woodworking shed, totally legal, by the way. Just a space for me, the sawdust, and maybe a little peace. Next thing I know, there's Karen at my fence measuring tape, clipboard face twisted like she'd smelled something dead. "Excuse me, this is unacceptable," she screeched. "This structure is illegal. You're too close to the property line. Remove it or face $500 daily fines." I had permits. I'd measured. When I handed her proof, her face went sour as spoiled milk. She snapped her tape, rattled off some line about intent to circumvent, and stormed off. That's when I noticed the neighbors watching from behind their curtains, afraid like this was just routine. That night I sat with cold coffee and a mountain of HOA bylaws. But see, I'm an engineer. Patterns are my bread and butter. Later, Mrs. Rodriguez's neighbor over the fence leaned in and whispered the truth. She destroyed Mr. Patterson's tomato garden, fined the young couple for their baby crying, drove 3 families out in 2 years. This wasn't community standards, it was a reign of fear. Willowbrook had 67 homes, good people all paying dues for landscaping and pool maintenance. What they really bought was Karen's private Gestapo handing out violations for crimes like laughter or mowing your lawn at the wrong hour. But Karen didn't know me yet. 20 years with a manipulative spouse had taught me all about psychological warfare. She figured I was another easy mark, just one more neighbor who'd roll over. She didn't realize she'd picked a fight with someone who solved problems by documenting, planning, and executing down to the last detail. A week after Shed Gate, Karen found her real superpower: fabricating violations. I get a certified letter, $200 fine for non-compliant paint color, along with a blurry photo of my house and a demand to repaint. My house was literally the same beige as everyone else's. She made up the color rule, and she was just getting started. So I did what engineers do. I got methodical. First stop, county records. Buried in the fine print, I found gold. Any rule change needed a community vote. Karen had been making up rules and bypassing votes for years. Then, just for fun, I strolled around her property. Turns out her own fence was too high, her shutters unapproved, her driveway illegally wide. Click, 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 photographic evidence, need as you please. And the stories kept coming. Sarah from Maple got cited because her kid giggled too loud. Mr. Williams was fined for mowing his lawn on a Saturday morning. Karen wielded paperwork like a weapon. Time for my first shot back. I filed a request for 5 years of architectural approvals. Under Texas law, they had 10 days to comply. Karen, in true fashion, called an emergency meeting, tried to turn the neighborhood against me. But when I stood up and laid out the photos and the documents, her face went every shade in the rainbow. She sputtered about context, but my phone was recording everything completely legal. Her cronies on the board hemmed and hawed, but I'd called her bluff. That's when she got nasty. 48 hours later, another thick envelope violation for my work truck commercial vehicle parked in my own driveway. Except right there in her photo was her husband's company car logo and all parked right next to mine. The hypocrisy was as thick as molasses. I started digging through HOA finances. What I found made my stomach turn. Every contract landscaping pool, even mailboxes, funneled money to Karen's family or friends, all at triple market rates. I calculated she'd stolen at least $180,000 in 5 years. And she targeted the vulnerable single parents, elderly, anyone she figured wouldn't fight back. But I wasn't rolling over. I found a clause in the charter: if I got 17 signatures, I could force a recall election for HOA president. My garage turned into a Resistance HQ coffee and whispered plans. But Karen had spies. She fired back, threatening foreclosure on anyone behind, on fines, a terrifying prospect, but mostly smoke. Any real judge would laugh her manufactured violations out of court. Still, fighting her could bankrupt a family. Then luck. I learned about that chunk of farmland right on the HOA border. It was up for sale within my reach thanks to the divorce. But just as I was looking into it, I got a call from Detective Morrison, Financial Crimes. Turns out I wasn't the only one on to Karen. He wanted to see my evidence, and fast. The pressure mounted. Karen sent everyone who'd signed my petition a $500 bill for mandatory inspections run by a shell company owned by her brother-in-law. She tried to slap me with a $12,000 foundation repair bill, but my engineer buddy Jake proved my place was rock solid and that her company was a total fraud. Next community meeting, I brought Jake's report, called her out, and she turned every color in the book. But Karen wasn't done. The next day, she filed a city complaint claiming I was running an unlicensed business out of my garage. The city inspector, a crusty old guy named Tom, looked around, laughed, and told me he'd seen this kind of neighbor feud 100 times. But then I struck oil. As I was buying the farmland, I discovered paperwork Karen had been negotiating in secret with developers to sell off the community pool and park our amenities to build condos. Her plan? Drive out families with kids, hold a vote while half the community was on vacation cash in an $85,000 consultation fee, and turn Willowbrook into a developer's paradise. Thing is, her whole plan needed access through the land I was about to own. She'd been harassing me to get me out so she could cut that deal. Once I realized this, everything clicked. I photocopied the documents, called the detective, and started planning my trap. I closed on the land, put up an 8-foot steel gate, bank-level security, and filed every bit of agricultural paperwork I could. I ran cover crops, installed irrigation, filed for tax exemption. My friends and neighbors became my eyes and ears, tracking Karen's moves like we were in a spy movie. I made sure the displaced families who'd been forced out still had voting rights. They came back for the big meeting. I got the local paper interested, a real David versus Goliath story. Karen retaliated hard. Middle of the night vandalism, lawsuits, false complaints. She even dumped her own bathroom Reno trash on my property, then tried to pin it on me. But I had cameras, records, everything. The inspector caught her red-handed. When she showed up, cardigan and all, to compromise, basically tried to bribe me to remove the gate, I just smiled and asked for it in writing. Her face said it all. The local paper dropped the big story front page. Karen called a community meeting, tried to smear me as unstable. She even called my boss to try and get me fired. None of it worked. By then, the detective was ready to file charges. Karen's developer buddies got nervous, sent me an $800,000 offer for my land, told me to remove the gate or else. I took that letter straight to the police. Friday night, the meeting room was packed. Karen came armed with lawyers, her supporters flanking her, but I had all the evidence: photos, audio, financial records. I played the tape of her trashing my irrigation. The audio of her offering a bribe laid out the paper trail of stolen money, showed the proof of the developer conspiracy. Neighbors one by one stood up and told their stories, how Karen had ruined their lives with fake violations, threats, fines. Even the old board members sat there silent, watching it all come down. That's when Detective Morrison stepped up and read Karen her rights. The click of those handcuffs was the sweetest sound I've ever heard. With Karen gone, the board suspended all her bogus fees. New elections brought in Mrs. Rodriguez as president, the Pattersons handling finances, Sarah from Maple running communications. Karen pleaded guilty, had to pay back the money, and her contracts were canceled. The displaced families moved back. My farm became the community hub, Farmers markets, fresh tomatoes, laughter where there used to be fear. My gate, once a symbol of spite, became a monument to standing your ground. Kids run the trails now. We protected our little patch from greedy hands, and we learned together that ordinary people can beat a bully if they stick together and keep receipts. Funny thing, people started asking if I'd run for city council. I'm still thinking about it. For now, I'm just enjoying the sound of laughter and knowing that sometimes the only way to stop a tyrant is to stand your ground, document everything, and never ever let fear do the talking. So what would you have done in my shoes? Ever taken on a bully or an HOA dictator and won? Share your story below, and let's talk about what real justice looks like when power and greed try to rule a neighborhood. And if you're facing your own HOA nightmare, don't give up. Sometimes the best revenge is just refusing to be intimidated.
Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video.